Hi everyone, thank you for joining me. This is Mike from CapDog. Today I'm going to be talking about the Sprint Burndown, a well-known report or type of chart from Agile that a lot of teams will use. I want to talk about how it's created, who creates it, how it's used. Let's check it out. We'll get right to it. So the Sprint Burndown. Let's talk about what it represents, who creates it, and who uses it, and how is it used. So to begin with, I want to talk about the sprint backlog, because it's hard to talk about a sprint burn down without talking about the sprint backlog. The sprint burn down ultimately represents how much work is remaining in the sprint, and the work remaining in the sprint is typically captured in the sprint backlog. So the sprint backlog is created by the development team in sprint planning. And when I say created, it doesn't mean it's finalized. It's just created. It's started. So this is a living plan that's going to evolve and change as needed throughout the life of this sprint. Now, those boxes on the left, those big round tangles, those are, in this picture, meant to represent product backlog items. So those three would be our forecast off of the product backlog. And on the right, those smaller round tangles are more work items or tasks that the team has come up with to work to accomplish the sprint goal. There's our work. There's the work we have planned at the beginning. So here's where we start. Now, to begin with, we need to know, as I mentioned, it's the amount of work remaining in the sprint. So we need to figure out a way to capture what is the work remaining any single day. And it's pretty straightforward. I've got all the work there. I just got to figure out how do I get to an integer value from that. So I'm trying to get to, again, a number, an integer, representing that volume of work remaining in expected effort for the sprint. So there's lots of ways that, if I look at these work items that the teams I've seen do this with, I'll talk about a few here. So you may be using estimates on those work items. So for instance, I might use, let's say, an integral scale like a story point scale. I might use an ordinal scale like shirt sizes. I may use time, so like hours or days. Some teams may not estimate these items, or with that they may simply say, well, how many work items are we working on this sprint, or how many PBIs. So all of these are valid, and all of them will result in an integer. When I say valid, they're valid so long as it helps the team with the data they need with their sprint burndown. Is it useful or not? So ultimately, we need an integer value, though. And these are some common techniques that teams will use to get to that integral value for the work remaining in the sprint. Now, at the beginning, first day of the sprint, well, you haven't done any work, so all you have is work remaining at this point, right? So what we're showing here now at the bottom is the beginning of our sprint burn down. On the y-axis, going up there, is the work remaining I have labeled, and on the bottom, the x-axis, I have time. So let's first here at the work remaining. I've already put a blue dot where I'm suggesting the amount of work remaining is at the very beginning of the sprint before the team has started. It's showing that blue dot on the axis. Now for time, let's assume we've got a 10-day sprint or 2-week sprint, so we've got 10 days. So I'm going to mark off 10 days throughout the life of the sprint along the bottom axis. So let's go through a little scenario here. So suppose the team on day 1, let's say they finish 3 items. In their sprint backlog, 3 of those work items. So with that, nothing else has changed. No new items have been added. None have changed. So the work remaining will thus go down. I don't have numbers on here, but ultimately you can imagine if these were estimated or if these were just counting PBIs or work items, we'd have fewer items after day 1 because we finished 3 of them. So with that, we'd count again how much work is remaining, and it would be lower. And thus, in the sprint burn down, it reflects that. So as up top, we have fewer items. Down here, we've shown the amount work remaining goes down. So there it is, day 1. Now let's carry on. Let's do a couple more days here. It won't take long to figure it out. So say day 2, the team, they get some more work done, but actually they discovered more work in those upcoming PBIs. I don't know if you noticed that. We added more work, but we also got work done, and really we got the same amount done as we actually added, right? When we say added, it's more like we discovered. The team discovered work as they were working through this, like, there's more to it than they initially thought. So we've discovered work, but we also got work done. In this case, we actually end up staying flat. So let's continue on. So day 3, say the team gets more work done, and actually it's got a fair amount done here. Right? If you see up top, so down below, we'll mark it off. what the amount of work remaining would be, and ta-da, down it goes a little bit further. As you can imagine, each day the team doing this, ultimately you're going to end up to a point where either time runs out or you're looking like you're going to run out of work. In either case, I mean, if it looks like the team needs to speak with the product owner about adding or removing work, that can happen any day throughout the life of the sprint. But this tool here is just sort of showing, giving one point of triangulation to the team to understand where we at with respect to the work we have and our sprint goal for that sprint. So you can trend out. Teams will add trend lines off of this, and then you can also add ranges. There's pessimistic and optimistic, right? Ranges. A pessimistic one is looking like it's going to be late, or not late, pardon me. It looks like we have too much work planned right now, or the optimistic one is that we have maybe too little. But, anyway, these are just things that people will do with sprint burndowns, and they may find it useful, as teams might. Now let's talk about using these, and I want to talk first about where not to use them. So the first one is, this is not for performance management. This is a tool that's daily tracking of work items for a team. This is way too fine-grained for performance management on a product development initiative or project, whatever it is you're doing. This is not the type of performance management you're looking for. I'd look more at burnout reporting, that type, release burnout reporting, or at least release focused, of a higher grained, much more coarse grained type of reporting to understand, if you're having a release, if you're trying to understand when you're going to be ready for release, that may be a better place to look. And for that, I'd be actually speaking with the product owner, not the development team. And the development team is creating this, not the product owner. So it's not that. It's also not an evaluation tool. It's not for managers to go and look and say, are these guys working or not? Or, are they planning well? It's not that at all. I see this over and over again, but it's not the intent at all. So nope, not an evaluation tool. You're not going to be able to tell if a team is doing well or not by looking at this report. So stop doing that. It's also not just general blanket statement. This is not for management or executive reporting. And just in general, this is not reporting for anyone outside of the development team. This is not to give visibility so people know how the team's doing. It's not that at all. This is strictly a tool for the development team. That's what this is. It is exclusively for that team. It's their plan. It's for them to understand how are we tracking, where are we at, and it's one point, right, of triangulation. It's not the only one, and in fact, it may not be a useful point of triangulation, so some teams won't do this at all. It's, as it says here, it's not required, right, unless, a team finds it valuable, then they can decide to do it. But it's just one tactic or one technique or practice a team may do to, better understand, whether or not their challenges with achieving the sprint goal. And it's only one point that might help. So to sum it up, this is the Sprint Burndown, is showing work remaining every day within the sprint, a reflection of the work that's remaining in your sprint backlog. It is for the development team, not for management, not for executives. It's not for reporting up and out to the rest of the organization on how the team is doing or where the product's at. It's absolutely not for this, or better types of reporting than this. So don't do that. You'll just likely cause churn and potential angst for both your stakeholders, but also the development team themselves. I hope that was helpful. Hey, if you've had any experiences with your sprint burn down, or ideas or challenges you've seen with it in the past, leave some comments below, please. I'd just love to hear your experiences and hear from other people. It's always great to learn together. Finally, if you're watching this on YouTube, please click the little like symbol. That'd be awesome. But importantly, please subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. It really helps me out. With that, enjoy the rest of your day, man. Thank you again. Bye-bye. Sounds of your heartbeat.